We're going live. Okay, this is being live streamed. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to Wake the Nation. This season, one of our members from Wake the Nation will not be on, Ms. Kamali Vernon, because of her school. She's in school, but her workload is a bit hectic this season. But we will be having some special guests from time to time. Mrs. Thais Love, Chaplain Love, Deacon Love. She recently had a loss. And so yesterday they buried her grandmother, who was 4 or 5 generations. I believe she was a great grandmother as well. And so the families, they're still, together. So this evening, just Crystal Collier and myself, Florencia Chang-Ageda, we're the only 2 that will be on. And tonight's title is Child Protective Services Failing Those That Need Help? So welcome once again to Wake the Nation. And Crystal, can you say good evening to the folks? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Okay. All righty. So I am going to start by, let me read this scripture to you. It reads, this is taken from Matthew 18, verses 5 and 6, which says, and if you tenderly care for this little one on my behalf, you are tenderly caring for me. But if anyone abuses one of these little ones who believes in me, it would be better for him to have a heavy boulder tied around his neck and be hurled into the deepest sea than to face the punishment he deserves. And that is taken from Matthew 18, verses 5 and 6. Now, we know that there are children that need help. There are times when families are in crises. There are times when children have been removed from homes. Many times, especially from homes where the parents are, not making a certain income. So from those who are poor and disenfranchised, and their children are taken from them. Sometimes the results should be and could be that maybe because of the stress that the parent is under, that they could have some kind of assistance, some kind of help. But many times we're told that the parents have to pay for anger management classes, let's say. They have to, now they're not making enough to take care of their children. Their children have been removed from their homes. Underneath all that stress, they have now to go to find the funds to take anger management class or whatever the class may be. So I don't know if anyone seeing this video tonight is going through such a situation, or if you just need to know, or someone that's going through a situation that might need help. Help is there for all. And so at the end of this video, we're going to give a website that you can reach out to, or get information from them as to how you can get help. I would like to read to you, though, an article, and let me just read this. And the article is entitled, Caseworkers Have Too Much Power. It says, child protection services are the people that are supposed to protect children out in the community, as well as support caregivers in fulfilling their roles when they face hardship. Unfortunately, the power given to CPS case workers have been under scrutiny for a while now, as the power can become destructive to both the lives of families physically and, of course, their mental well-being. So the article is saying that families, the structure of the family is being harmed, not just physically, but mentally as well. The CPS case workers have the power to be able to determine abuse without needing evidence, which would be the case they face a judge in court. Using their own opinions and power, they have been found guilty of removing children from loving homes over minor issues that could have been solved with the extra support they have within their power to give. Unfortunately, the removal of any child from a home could have a major impact on the lives of the child or children and that of their parents, to the point where it affects employment opportunities, the right to give birth and keep future children in their care, and much more. In a way, the corruption they cause can be more abusive than the reasons for taking children from loving parents, because they have problems with their IQ. They're faced with poverty through no fault of their own. And in doing so, children that are facing real abuse are being left in homes that they should not be. Fighting CPS caseworkers after they have made a decision is difficult, especially if they have taken dislike to the children's caregivers. They have within their power the ability to destroy a family based on their own opinions, rather than following the guidelines that are set out originally to protect children in need from deliberate abuse. If you have had any type of dealings with child protection services in the past, you could be forgiven for thinking that the judge would have more power than them. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And there have been even cases where children were taken from their parents, adopted, and even given through court of law, where there was no evidence to prove neglect, and the children were never returned. Being in child protection can prove to be a profitable business, but this is something that needs to change so that vulnerable people, whether through finances or disability, are being targeted. It is essentially a way of using the legal system to legally kidnap children who would thrive in their current homes with a little extra support. Children should have the right to receive the love that only a loving, caring parent can give, regardless of their situation. And proper use of the authority should carry heavier liability, so that personal dislike of an individual or family should not allow CPS caseworker to be able to use the children as collateral. Stronger laws surrounding wrongful accusations should be accountable to prevent future situations of families being split without the evidence that they would be needed in court of conviction. This is like really difficult and a little heavy topic. I must say that years ago, my firstborn was asthmatic, and I tell you, there were times when he would have asthma attacks and I would have to take him to the hospital. There was one particular evening I came home from work, and he was having difficulty breathing, so I thought. I took him to the hospital and they checked him out. But when they checked, him, they were like, yeah, his breathing is fine. And I don't know if that was because he didn't want to do his homework that evening. And you know how it is. We've had our children, and we know that sometimes, if they know they can get out of a situation because of another situation, then they will what? fall on that. So I don't know if that's what he did at the time. But when I took him after they checked his lungs, they checked his chest, I checked his back. They were like, well, if he had an attack, he's fine now. And then the doctor said to him, would you like to jump? And I tell you what, my son jumped up, not just once, not just twice, but thrice. And then the doctor said, well, can you tie your shoelace? Because, he had to, we're taking off his sneakers. And so he put on his sneaker and he bent over and tied the shoelace. And the doctor said, but when they lifted his shirt to check his lung, he had a welt on his lower back where he had gotten spanked because he was doing some little mischievous things and wasn't doing his work. So, yeah, they called. I did not know at the time, but I just saw people coming in and out, and it was just a frenzy. And I'm like, okay, what's up? And they were like, we might have to remove your child from the home. I said, what? And so I said, what is this? Now, I never knew anything about Child Protective Services because my children are well taken care of. And he was my oldest, and they regular doctors visit, their doctors know them quite well, and in school, so I was like, okay, so what is this now? So I was told that he had the welt. So that was the first time I was seeing the welt. And he's a little lighter complexion. So, and when he had a little red mark. So I asked what happened. So he said, oh, he was misbehaving and grandma beat him. So they said, your grandma beat you. So they were like, so who lives in the home with you? So I'm like, I live there with my children and my mom. We had moved back home, and so we were with my mom, and they were like, well, we have to, no, your child cannot come back. So I said, listen, if wherever you're taking my child, I'm going there too. And I said, he's not an abused child. I showed them the medical record, we had a little yellow booklet. I gave them the name of his doctor. And there are no marks on his body, and he's the light complexion. They examined him. As a matter of fact, they stripped my child naked just for that reason. They had stripped him naked just to make sure that there were no marks on his body. He just had the one little red welt and it was the tip of the belt that caught him there. Anyway, to make a long story short, they were like, yeah, they have to take him. And I said, well, it wasn't going down that way. I didn't, as I said, I didn't know what proper protocol was, but I remembered when I first migrated here, there was a lady that she was in this club that my mom was in, and I remember they removed her child from her home. I was told when I came, listen, when I came to this country to live, not to visit. When I came to visit, everything was all bright and cherry. When I came to live, I went to a couple of funerals and wasn't good. Okay, this child was taken from the mother, and West Indian parents, your children are rude or they do something wrong, you discipline them because you do not want them to become a ward of the state. So anyway, this child had misbehaved in school, did some things, and the mother had disciplined her child. So she beat the child essentially with a belt. The child called 911 and they came and removed the child. And unfortunately, the child ended up in a home where the child was, it was a foster mother that had other children, and the child was abused and ended up dying. That was so painful. So the moment I heard about that, not having deal with that, but then here I'm hearing this, let me tell you something. That just triggered. I said, listen, no, you can't take my child to anybody's home and then tell me sorry when you're done. So if he has to go, I'm going, and the other kids are coming. How's that? And so anyway, they went back and had a meeting. And to make a long story short, they ended up saying that I could take my son home, and I did, and that they would do visits. So they did 3 visits. And, I don't know if they ever spoke to my children's doctor, but they did have a regular pediatrician. And I don't know what they investigated or what. Nothing came of it. That's all I remembered. And they removed us from whatever. I don't even think we went in the system. I really don't know. But I wasn't aware of many issues that I later became aware of. As an advocate for the community, I served on the Community Education Council. I've had to go with parents to certain meetings, and I started to learn more and to know that there are times when, yes, parents, maybe they're not, at that economic level in their income, that they can afford lawyers, or they can afford the counseling and everything that is required. And children are being removed. And more, I mean, as adults, I have met adults that were removed from their homes, and they were sexually abused, many of them. And so it is concerning when I read this article to see and to know that a child can be removed from their parents' home where they can get love. Yeah, they won't always do something right, but if you're disciplining your child, you're not disciplining your child to kill your child, because you want what's best for your child. But to know that a child is removed from their home, they're sexually abused, or they're physically abused, or they're killed, worse, and that the people who are taking them are making money off your child. I don't know. Crystal, what do you have to say? What do you have to say? What cases have you learned about? Have you heard of any? Have you known of anyone, or heard of anyone, or read an article anywhere where, it just didn't go right?
Well, I'm seeing that increasingly, and these things are close to home because I do have 2 children of my own, but I'm seeing an increase in the unfairness in CPS, and just that, you know, a lot of people have to fight to get their children back in cases where, even if they are proven to not have abused them, they're not taking the children from the foster home. Or I've seen, and it's increasing in number in the African American community, in amongst minorities, versus, it in white American homes. So as a parent, it just makes me feel like, okay, there was a case with there's a young woman from American Idol who just had 2 children, and she had both of her children taken away because she's vegan. Her kids are vegan, and her 2-year-old, she was weaning him off of breast milk because she was pregnant with her second child. And when she took him to the doctor because he wouldn't eat food after she was trying to wean him off, they offered her a B12 shot, and she declined and wanted to see what other options. And because the reason she brought him there was because he wasn't eating. They decided that she was abusing him and took him away, gave birth. And as she left the hospital after giving birth, her daughter was only, 3 days old. And they waited till she drove out of the hospital to take the daughter from her. And there was no evidence of abuse, but simply because they assumed the boy was malnourished, that because of their lifestyle, that she was going to abuse the daughter. Well, she did get the daughter back. I don't know if she got her son back as of late, but that's just, it's scary because you kind of feel like, and even in your situation, can you take your child to the doctor and trust that they're going to understand whatever issue you're there for, and not see a problem with something else. I, even as a child, had mosquito bites after coming back from Grenada for 3 weeks. And my teacher thought I was being abused. Um,
What?
but they're mosquito bites. So it was,
Well,
they asked the question. It's silly, but it's ignorance, because when someone doesn't understand something, they make it a problem. And it's not a
yes.
problem for you, it's a problem for them. Um, and people in power need to recognize that, even when they don't like a person, or, your duty is to uphold the rules, the regulation, the law, not to take it out on a parent in a family. As African Americans, I think we have the stigma of so much to fight already. And I feel like we have so much eating at our families just being whole, that trying to take our children away is just another issue. I even saw a Black woman who was a surrogate for an Asian couple. They ended up having twins, and it turned out, as the twins were a couple months old, they noticed that one was a little different from the other. Well, one of the twins happened to be one of their babies, and not the Asian couple's baby, her and her
Oh my
husband,
goodness.
rather than the Asian couple's baby. So what the Asian couple did was threaten her and hand her child over to CPS.
Whoa.
So she took her till the child was 18 months old to be able to get him back. The Asian couple told her, "We're not giving you this child unless you give us back our money." And she's like, "Well, we can't give you back the money. It's already spent. It's like 6 months later after you've had the baby." And they're like, "Well, we don't want it if it's not ours." And where they could have simply given the child to their parents, they didn't do that. They handed the little Black baby over to foster care, and they had to fight
No.
to get their child. Like I told you, they didn't get full custody of a child that she birthed until he was 18 months old.
Oh my goodness. So that bonding moment was not there for them. And as you said, you
Right.
know, in the dynamic of the Black family, to when you're trying to keep it together and you have even more obstacles or hurdles over which to climb just to have your family there. Wow,
So
that's
much
very
against
hard.
Black couples, and then so much against Black children, and so much against Black families as a whole.
That
It's you try not to live scared as a parent, but it can be difficult knowing, for one, if I take my children to the doctor for a ride, are they going to believe that I put that on them? If I ask too many questions at school, because I did see a case where a teacher hit a child at school, and when the parent complained, the teacher said it was the parent that did it, not that. Like, even though they found out that the teacher actually did hit this child, she still is fighting to get her daughter back.
no.
Because the way the system works, once it's almost like once a claim is filed, it just sort of follows you. They're not, the system isn't forgiving in any way, whether you've done wrong or whether you haven't.
So, folks, we're asking tonight, do you think that Child Protective Services is really there to protect? It says child protective in its name. So it that suggests that it should be protecting the children, those that are truly being abused, not those that are being disciplined. And what constitutes abuse? What are the markers and who decides? Like in the article, it states that they can decide that a child is being abused. And like you said, a child can have legitimate marks and you know, but what if like you had the mosquito bites? Some children will even pick their little bites, you know, like when they get a bite or something. So
That's exactly what I did and made them
exactly.
bigger.
And it happens. It happens. This is just sad. And as you were talking about taking your child to your doctor, I'm so glad we had such a great pediatrician. Uh, However, I was reading an article that stated that the Child Protective Services do have these physicians that they have pediatricians that they place in hospitals and certain places that are there to help to get a child away from a family. And I wasn't aware of that. And when I read that article, I was like, wow, because you think you're taking your child to the hospital because of an emergency. And I also read about a parent that I think they paid them off in the end, that their child had fallen and hit its head and had a bleeding. And they said that they took the child, but there was a fight. And long story short, the parents got lawyers, and at the end of it, I guess because they did not want other parents to have a case against them, rather than go to court, they just paid off the parent, which makes no sense to me. Which makes no sense to me.
But that's the problem with that is it seldom happens, which is why you saw
Yes,
that in the news. They said that almost never happens where
yes, that's
CPS
true.
admits fault. And even in
No,
that
they
case, I
didn't. They
think I
didn't
read it because
admit.
they didn't
They
admit
didn't.
fault, but they
Yeah,
paid
they did
them.
not. They did not. They did not admit. They just simply paid. They didn't admit anything. And so, you know, it's and we're doing this for a reason, sons and daughters of God, because especially for the younger people, you're having a family, you have a lifestyle, and you know, you may not be aware of the traps that are out there, not to help you, but traps to harm, you know. And so you have young parents sometimes having a kid, or you may have been married, or you may just be single, having your child, you're going through a rough time, you're trying to get help with the child, and you know, you may be snapping, and that may be in this society where, you know, we have sex traffickers, we have, you know, were you aware of this, Crystal, that in 2020 a ring, a large ring, I forgot how many people were in that ring, was the FBI or the agencies that went after them did break up a large sex trafficking ring. Do you know who were in those rings? There were doctors, pediatricians. There were police officers. No, not police officers. There were um, doctors, uh, pastors. There were pastors. There were teachers in that ring. And when I thought about that, I said, whoa, wait. These are the very people that we entrust our children to. For the most part, we send them to church because this is a way they're going to know about God, right? And have a moral life. We send them to school to learn how to become productive citizens. And we take care of their health by sending them to the doctor. And I was like, the very people that we are supposed to entrust our children with. Our children spend what, 7.5 hours per day, or 6 to 7.5 with their teachers, right? So that's like the majority, 5 days per week. Then on weekends they go to church. They have this their Sunday or Sabbath school teachers, and the pastors, you have youth pastors, and and a doctor. And who knew? And so who do you trust? So this is, an issue. And so I don't know if there are parents out there that are facing these issues, or if you think there's a potential that you can share. Listen, it is good. There are parent groups that you should be aware of, a parent advocate group rather, you know because I'm telling you, this is a scary situation, to know that you have someone who has the power to say, hey, that child doesn't belong in your home, and your child can be taken. And no one, like the article says, no one can love your child the way you love your child. That's what I always think of, Crystal. I don't know about you, but I remembered carrying my children and how protective I was, because I remembered what with I almost miscarried my second child. And when you almost miscarry, let me tell you something, that is like one of the worst. You haven't seen that life yet, but you know it's a life, and you're like, no, I'm protecting this life at all costs while it's in me. So when that child is born, that doesn't stop. So who can love your child like you when you're fighting for that child? A lot of, not all pregnancies go smoothly. Some people have great pregnancies, and we thank God for that, but not all pregnancies go smoothly. I was on bed rest for a little while, and God healed that situation. He really did. However, I'm just saying, folks go through things, and then after you bring your child, you go through childbirth, which puts your life in danger and the child's life in danger, and you go through that, and then here you have this life, and you're grateful for. And now maybe because you're black or you're brown, and you're not making enough money, but God has blessed you with a life that you have to take care of. And someone may say, no, we think that we can remove this child from your care and put them someplace else. And that person may just see your child as dollar signs, may just see your child as a way to get over, and they can discard your child because they will get others. And let me ask a question. And if anyone's out there who knows of this, what happens to the foster homes where children die in? Do they, because I remember reading a disturbing article that a mom, I think she had how many children? And like, I think she had like 12, eight. And like 3 of them had died, but I didn't see a follow-up that the 5 were removed from our home. And that is scary. That is really scary. So I see hello, good evening. I see Miss Thais is on here. How are you? How are you? How's everyone doing? I hope you all are well. We're looking forward to seeing you on the next Wake the Nation. So Miss Thais says, this all stems from the absence of the extended family. Oh, Crystal, you want to tell them about the one that the grandmother, how they took the child from the grandmother? You want to share that one?
Which one is that?
I don't remember what had happened to the mother, and the grandmother had the child, and instead the judge called the father who lived in California. Did you see that one? Did you read that one? Okay, so
I'm not
okay,
recalling.
so there was an article. I don't remember what had happened, why the child was removed from the mother, but the grandmother had the child for a while. Well, when the case, went before the judge and everything like that, the child was sent to a foster home. And it was discovered that the foster parent was sexually abusing the child. Oh my goodness. I wish I had the article, but I will try to put it in the in the box after, after this episode ends. When if I find it, I hope I find it again. But so this is what happened, Crystal and folks. The after the child was being abused by the foster parent, the grandparent had the child and thought that she was going to get custody of the child, even though they approved her for the time she had the child, and the child was doing well and thriving. Then they decided, oh, let us get the father who lived on the in California and had nothing to do with the child at all prior. And the father came and took the child from the grandmother. Hear what happened at the end of the article. The father granted the foster parents custody where they could take the child for sleepovers. I am a daughter of God, but I tell you what, that enraged every bone and hair in my body. I think righteous indignation was there. That is one of the saddest things I've ever heard about. And so, as Chaplain Love, who is also a psychologist, she wrote that it stems from the absence of the extended family. And yes, sometimes extended family is good, and sometimes they're not, because there was a mother in Baltimore that asked her sister to care for her children, and the sister had her children dead in her trunk driving around for almost a year. And so we do not know what sent her over the edge and why. I think the police had stopped her, and when they pulled over the car, and when they went, they smelled something and they were going to check the trunk, and she said, well, she confessed as to that she had hit the daughter and she fell and hit her head. But as to what happened to her sister's son, she never said. But both kids were in the trunk of her car and they were dead. They were dead children. She had been driving around. The brother, I think, didn't die. His death was a more recent death than the little boy's sister. But as I said, Jesus says, whoever abuses a child, whether it's a parent, whether it's a foster parent, whether it's the child protective agency services, people that are there, whoever are in collusion. And in one of the articles, it alluded that there were judges that were involved, doctors were involved, and that did you read where they said, oh, Crystal, do you remember the article, the one that stated that this is also done because they get paid, I think, $4,000 or $6,000 for a child?
Yes, Child Protective Services is almost run as a business rather than, something that's done for the community, for the better of families. And it's saddening, it's sickening, but the same thing happens in churches with politics. I mean, it happens everywhere. Pharmaceutical companies pay doctors to push certain drugs, Yeah, it happens. It's not surprising, but in this instance, where we're talking about people who simply cannot help themselves, it's sickening.
It is. It really is. And so I want to say that if you know of, and I want to reach out to, I want to say hi to Nanny. Is that what? Yeah, I want to say hi to Nanny, who have the group Parents Together. Thank you for advocating on behalf of children, children everywhere. Their group extend beyond the borders of New York. And so we're grateful for those group of parents that are saying, I'm a parent, but I'm not just a parent for my child. And it's to say it takes a village. So if you think a child is being abused, or if you think a child is in danger, or if you think there's a parent that is overloaded, that you can assist, maybe your neighbor, sometimes you can help say, you know what? Um, Send them over here, let them do their homework or something, just to give the parent a break so that they can take a breather. This is, it is good when we have parents who are within close proximity, or your children go to the same schools, or they may be in the same class, that you can take turns to say, hey, how about this? Is when you know who the parents are, by the way. Okay, not just to say you pick up your child willy-nilly and send them to anybody's house. We must know if you're the responsible one, then maybe you want to say, how about sending your children over here? Or maybe if you're in a home where you have more assistance in your home, and you can say, you know what, let me give that parent a break because you have time to get a break. Then you can say, you know what, how about you can send your child certain evenings, or maybe help out on the weekend or something. Or, I remember back home growing up where parents would take other people's children to church with them. When they knew parents would have a difficult time, they would say, hey, I will bring your child to church on Sundays or on Saturdays, depending on which day they worship, right? So if it's a Sabbath keeper, or if it's Sunday, and, or vacation Bible school, they would say, hey, I will take your child with my children. And, there are those parents that are willing to do that, that can assist. And if you are someone who can help, it is good that you should help, because I honestly believe that a child will be better off. And this is what we have lawyers that are saying that in some of these articles. We have parent groups that are saying that. We have investigators that are saying this, that they have found that a child is best cared for in his or her own home. Granted, there are times when the parent may need some assistance. Maybe they're just stressed out. Maybe they just need to make some extra money. How about, Crystal, you want to hear this? How about the state helping out a parent? What you would pay a foster parent, how about helping a parent with their own child, giving them half? If you give 6,000 for a child to a foster parent, you can easily give 2,000 to a parent for their own child, to help them so that they can pay the bills. They can give the child. Some children, I was a teacher, I taught. I remember children coming to school that didn't have enough to eat, that they had holes in their shoes. And I thought, wait, we're living in America. This shouldn't be. Living in Jamaica, yes, I understand that. But living in America, I was like, wait, what? But as a parent, we reach out. I reach out and help. No, children need to eat. They need to. I remember growing up, I didn't have to have adult concerns. But today, children growing up have adult concerns. Children growing up are living fearful lives, fearing they may be removed from their homes, fearing their parents, they may lose their parents, fearing they may be sexually molested, and many times they are, by even family members or members of the family of the foster homes. And I learned from someone recently at the mayor's office that even kids in the foster system, when they age out, they they are put in buildings where people can prey on them. So it doesn't even end. It doesn't end. And so we see a broken society. We see broken adults, and people who are broken can only live broken lives. Those who are abused either end up becoming abusers themselves, or they end up abusing others. And the cycle has to be broken. And it's better if it's never started. An ounce of prevention, my grandmother always used to say, is better than a pound of cure. Because it's better you pay not to break the system, better not to break the child. Because then You don't have to pay for that person when they're in jail. You don't have to pay to put them in foster care. If we provide programs to assist parents while they're raising their children, impoverished parents, parents that are living in the projects, Black parents, brown parents that don't have the wealth, that if programs can be there to assist them to raise their children to get good education so that they can become productive citizens, then the pound doesn't have to be paid to cure them. The system pays less money for a child to go to school than it pays for them to be in jail. It shouldn't have to be that way. So we're asking today that we if you need help, please reach out. You know, there are elected officials that are concerned. Yeah, there are those that may not be, but there are those that are. And I would say, as a Christian, pray first. Pray first. Pray over your children daily. Pray with your children daily. You would be amazed at the difference it makes. And then, if you're in a situation that your child has been taken from you already and you want your child back, pray, seek guidance, seek help, know that God will provide. He will send the right person in your path to advocate on your behalf. And I want to say, for those who know of children that are in difficult situations, that are going through difficulties, as I said before, the word of God tells us, anyone who harms a child, it is better you put a stone around your neck and be hurled in the deepest part of the ocean than to face the punishment you deserve. I want to say that Proverbs 31, 8 and 9 says, speak up for the people who have no voice. This is what we're doing today. Crystal and I are here doing this today. We're speaking up for the people who have no voice, for the rights of all the down and outers. Speak out for justice. Stand up for the poor and destitute. If you know of a child in need, I am telling you, oh, your reward will be great if you help that child in any way, shape, or form. If you know of a parent who's having difficulty feed their child, when you go to the supermarket and you're shopping for your babies, and if you can afford it, how about getting an extra gallon of milk, getting an extra dozen eggs, getting an extra loaf of bread? Even that can help. You never know. That small little token of good can go a long way. This is something that can be done to help. You're shopping for books and pencils. That takes an extra burden off a parent that may be making what, 6, 7, 8, I don't know what the minimum, what is minimum wage now, Crystal? What is minimum wage? $15 an hour? There's still people who are making less than $15 an hour though. And in today's economy, that's not going a long way. It's not. So, you know, and the other thing I want to say, if a parent needs help with their child, don't let them or their children feel stigmatized. This is the reason why folks aren't getting help, because then they feel stigmatized, even by the church, by members in the church. So how about we just help each other in our brokenness to become whole, because Jesus wants us to be whole. But too many times, you know, the body is just helping others to be too fractured, to be too frayed. So as a child of God, this is my plea. And Crystal, is there any recommendation that you have, a website that we can put up or something for someone to reach out where they can get help? And just to know, for you young people, when you're getting married, when you're courting, or if you're the male that is courting someone, or you're a person who's courting someone, or you're the person who is being courted, whichever way it goes, when you think of getting into a marriage, remember the possibility, have that talk about your children, have that talk about what you're going to do, what areas you need to live in. And if you have anger issues with anger, if you have ways of poorly expressing yourself, it is good if you can get some anger management, save yourself some heartaches instead of bringing a child into a situation like that. So, Crystal, what do you have to say?
I just have one website. It's called parentalrights.org, and it's just a
Okay.
website that provides
Okay.
information to parents to sort of empower them in how to move forward if they have any issues with.
Parentalrights.org
Yes.
or okay, I'm putting that in the chat. Okay. So is there anything else you'd like to? Okay. So with that, we just want to wish you oh no, before I close, I want to read uh uh there were these recommendations for the states on this site. It says call for an independent, so uh they would like the state to call for an independent audit in all state child protective services and for a federal congressional hearing on child protective services nationwide. Activate immediate change. Every day that passes means more families and children are being subject to being held hostage and their lives destroyed. This is so sad. Oh my goodness. This is so sad. They also want to abolish the federal and state financial incentives that have turned child protective services into a business that separate families for money. Well, I don't think it should be abolished because if someone is taking care of a child, then they should get help. But as I said before, how about writing this into the law that help parents that are, that need help, that are making an income below poverty line or at poverty line? How about instead of removing that child, putting them in a foster care system, even by cutting it in half, that would still help that parent? How about writing that in there? But the thing is not to incentivize families to just want children just because they're getting monies for them. So
I
there's
think a
that.
part of that I think a part of that is directed towards the financial incentives that are given to doctors and schools more than the other end,
You're
because we
right.
know that there are services for that, but the
Yes,
what makes it a business is really when they pay people to point it out and they are
yes.
incorrect or emotionally charged when they do.
Yes, you're right. You're right, Crystal, because it did say that there were doctors that were paid for that, and there were teachers. The article did say that. So you're right about that. And also they say grant to parents their right, verbally and in writing, mandate a search for family members to be given the opportunity. This is what Deacon Love was stating in the chat. Uh, mandate a search for family members to be given the opportunity to adopt their own relatives if children need to be removed permanently. That right there, yes. Mandate a jury trial where every piece of evidence is prepared before permanently removing a child from his or her parents. Open family court, remove the secrecy, allow the press and family members access. Did you I wasn't aware that families did not have access. Were you aware? I wasn't aware of that. So we're just asking each and every one, if you're aware of something that is going wrong, just speak up for those who have no voice. And for those of you who've been speaking up for those who have no voice, we thank you for doing that. Thank you for speaking on behalf of the voiceless. nanny and other parent groups that are doing that. Uh, for those pastors and just some regular parents, I have seen regular parents advocate on behalf that may not have any knowledge of what to do, but just to know that, hey, this parent needs help. So as I said, we can reach out and help each other in many, 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 many ways. Just let the Lord lead in whatever way he wants you to. We shouldn't always say, oh, I can't do anything. You can pray. That's one. You can always pray. And after you've prayed, listen for whatever instruction the Lord gives to you, and then follow up on that. So with that being said, we thank you for joining us tonight on Wake the Nation. This is the first of this season, and we were on a hiatus. So tune in next week. Next month. Sorry, we're monthly. Reverend Chaplain Deacon Love will be back with us, and we'll be having some guests from time to time. So tune in. And if you have any particular topic that you'd like to discuss or like more information on, or you'd like to bring light to, or you'd like to be part of the sorry, I got distraction. Or if you'd like to be part of the panel, then you can always messenger me at Florencia Chang-Ageda with your topic, or if you'd like to be a part of the panel, as I said before. So tune in, and thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for sharing. Remember, we're here to help each other to be better in all that we do so that we can be more productive for the good of ourselves and unto the glory of God. Thank you all. We love you, and God loves you even more. Good night, everyone. Thanks, Crystal. Thank you for joining.
No problem. Night,
All
night.
right. Nighty night.